Dawn bled slowly across the desert, a pale wound in the eastern sky. The sun seemed reluctant to touch the land, to break the deep silence that had settled over the plains like a shroud. Its first, timid rays reached the sagging wooden skeleton of a forgotten line shack, painting the warped boards in a light that was both gentle and accusing. Under a thin scrim of rotted canvas and hay, a young Cheyenne woman drew a breath that was more shudder than sigh. Her body was a map of her flight, every muscle aching, every joint protesting. At 19, she knew the weight of a truth that could not be spoken. She had been exiled not for a crime, but for a vision. She had dreamed of a sickness coming from the east, a pale cough that would steal the breath from her people's children. She spoke the warning. The elders called it fear-mongering, a disruption of the peace they clung to. Her own family had looked away in shame. They gave her a waterskin and a knife, then turned their backs. The desert became her judge, a vast and indifferent jury that had found her guilty of survival. For 2 days and 2 nights, she walked until her feet were raw and her spirit frayed. The line shack, with its gaping door like an open mouth, was not a sanctuary. It was simply the place where her body gave out. She did not hear his approach. The cowboy appeared at the doorway, a silhouette against the bruised colors of morning. He was a man carved from the land itself, perhaps 30, with a stillness about him that spoke of solitude long endured. He was tracking a missing heifer, his mind on tracks and spoor, not on the ghost of a girl hiding in his ruin. When his eyes adjusted to the gloom and found her, he did not startle. He simply stopped. He saw the dust caked on her skin, the defiant terror in her eyes, the way she tried to make herself small against the earth. She flinched, bracing for the shout, for the hand that would surely drag her out. Instead, he knelt. The motion was slow, deliberate, an act of humility. The dry earth whispered under his knees. His voice was low, a gravelly sound that seemed to belong to the dawn. "You can't stay here." She stared, her heart a trapped bird against her ribs. Cruelty was a language she understood. This quietness was foreign and dangerous. He did not move closer. "There's a place for you. At my ranch." The words made no sense. They were a trick, a prelude to a greater cruelty. Her own voice was a rasp. "I have nothing." "I know," he said, as if she had stated the time of day. He did not offer a hand, knowing she would not take it. He simply rose and turned, creating a space for her to follow. Slowly, every movement a silent argument between pride and exhaustion, she pushed herself up. He walked ahead, not looking back, his pace measured to allow the distance between them to feel safe. She followed, her steps hesitant, not out of mistrust for him, but for the world that had taught her such lessons. His home was a low, sturdy cabin a quarter-mile away. He pushed the door open and stepped aside, an unspoken invitation. She paused on the threshold, her fingers brushing the splintered wood as if testing the solidity of a dream. Inside, the air was still and carried the sense of coffee grounds and smoked meat. A low fire glowed in the hearth. He motioned to a worn chair, then moved to the stove. He poured a cup of water and placed it on the table beside a heel of bread and a strip of jerky. He did not watch her, turning instead to gaze out the window, giving her the privacy of her hunger. She ate, the simple food a profound medicine in her empty belly. A fragile warmth began to seep into her bones. She looked at his back, at the quiet slope of his shoulders. "Why?" she asked, the word sharp in the quiet room. He didn't turn. The desert is no place for anyone to die alone. The simplicity of it disarmed her. She had prepared for bargaining, for interrogation, for a price to be named. She found only a stark, unadorned grace. It was terrifying. It was the first real peace she had known in days. He showed her to a small room at the back of the cabin. The bed in it looked impossibly soft, a luxury she'd forgotten existed. It looked safe. That was the most frightening thing of all. He lit a lamp in the hallway, its soft glow spilling across the floorboards. "In case you wake up," he said, his voice low, "so you can see where you are." She lay down on top of the covers, not daring to get under them. Her body, which had been wound tight for days, simply let go. Sleep pulled her under almost instantly. For the first time in longer than she could remember, there was no fear in the surrender. Outside, the night wind whispered through the pines, telling stories she was too scared to believe. Inside, the cowboy stood for a long moment in the hallway, just listening to the steady, even sound of her breathing. It was a strange sound in his quiet house. It didn't feel like an intrusion. It felt like the answer to a question he'd forgotten he'd been asking. When morning came, she woke slowly, the deep, unfamiliar peace still wrapped around her. She didn't know if she belonged here. After being cast out, she wasn't sure she belonged anywhere. But lying there, she knew with a certainty that went straight to her bones that her life had changed the moment this quiet man had found her in that shack. Pushing herself up, her legs still sore and shaky, she felt the delicate balance of this new start. Whatever was coming, more kindness, a fight, or just a slow, careful work of trust, she was standing at the edge of a different life. And with that thought came a quiet strength, a resolve to meet whatever truth this place held for her. He found her later, as the day was giving up its last light. She was sitting by the corral fence, watching the sky turn a deep, bruised blue. The air had a bite to it now, and you could feel a storm gathering way out on the horizon, a great dark beast taking a deep breath. She didn't turn when he walked up. He stopped a few feet away, the gravel crunching softly under his boots. He was careful not to get too close. "You should head in before that storm gets here," he said. His voice was quiet, leaving the choice entirely up to her. She kept her eyes on the distance. "Storms don't scare me." "I know," he replied. "But you're hurt, whether you say it out loud or not." She went still. It was a tiny reaction, one most people would have missed. But he saw it. He saw the way she held herself, all tight and defensive, like she was wearing armor. He saw the flash of pain in her eyes when she thought nobody was looking. Her pride was strong, forged by a life of having things taken from her. But even pride gets tired. The wind picked up, swirling dust around their feet. The clouds were getting heavier, darker. She stood up slowly, like the simple act cost her something. "If you think pulling me out of that shack gives you the right to judge what I can handle, you're wrong." "I didn't pull you out," he answered, his voice even. "I just found you first." That made her turn. Her eyes, sharp and used to looking for lies, searched his face. He was a quiet man, maybe in his 30s, with a stillness about him that came from spending too much time alone. He didn't try to move closer. He didn't try to calm her down. He just stood there, giving her a space that didn't feel crowded. It was a rare thing. "You see the world in too soft a light," she said, though the edge had gone from her voice. "Most men would claim they were my savior." He gave a small shrug. "Then I won't claim anything." A flicker of confusion crossed her face. She couldn't tell if he was making fun of her, or if he really meant it. She looked at him again, really looked, and this time, she let out a breath she didn't realize she'd been holding. The wind kicked up again, colder now, making the corral gate rattle. The horses inside shifted nervously. A low rumble of thunder rolled across the plains, much closer this time. He glanced toward the barn. "It's moving in fast." "And you're still out here talking to me," she said. "So are you," he replied. For a moment, they just stood there in a silence that felt thin and fragile, a line neither of them had yet decided to cross. She was the first to look away, not because she was dismissing him, but because she was unsure. He took a step back. "I'll leave you to it. But get inside before the lightning starts." As he turned to go, her voice stopped him. It wasn't sharp anymore. It was raw, like she was forcing the words out. "Why haven't you asked?" she said. He paused. "Asked what?" "Why I was in your shack. Why I tried to take your horse." He turned back to face her, his expression not changing. "If you wanted me to know, you'd tell me." She blinked, thrown off balance. "You don't want to know?" "Of course I do," he said. "But my wanting to know isn't as important as you being ready to say it." The honesty of it hit her in a way that anger never could. She knew how to deal with a threat. This quiet respect was a language she didn't speak. Lightning flashed, lighting up the clouds from within like veins of fire. She took a sharp breath. "My people, we fell apart. There wasn't a war. It was sickness. Hunger. Her voice got quieter. My little sister, she ran off before I did. I thought if I could just catch up to her, if I had a horse, maybe she wouldn't have to die out there alone. Her jaw tightened, holding back the emotion. He didn't say anything right away. The silence wasn't empty, though. It was full of a strange, patient understanding. I'm sorry, he said finally. The simple words were heavier than any pity. She looked away, not to hide anger this time, but something else, something more vulnerable. She just gritted her teeth and pushed harder. If this goes, the horses will bolt. Their eyes met for a split second through the chaos. There was no fear in that look, only a shared, stubborn refusal to lose. Together, grunting with the effort, they forced the massive door back into the frame. He slammed the latch home with a final decisive blow. They stumbled back from the door, chests heaving, the storm's roar still ringing in their ears. The barn groaned around them, but it held firm. The wind's screaming fury began to settle into a steady, pounding rhythm, like a giant heart beating against the walls. She finally let out a long, slow breath, the tension seeping from her shoulders. You didn't have to do that, she said, her voice quiet but clear in the semi-darkness. I had a grip on it. He wiped the rain from his face with the back of his sleeve. I know you did. I wasn't going to let you face that alone, she added, the words feeling more like a confession than a statement. He just nodded, his eyes meeting hers in the dim light. She looked at him, then really looked, and felt something deep inside her shift and settle. It wasn't trust, not the full and easy kind. That would take time. But it was the seed of it, the first, fragile beginning of its shape. Outside, the world was still chaos, a tempest of wind and water. But inside the trembling barn, surrounded by the scent of wet hay and the sound of their own breathing, something new and solid had taken root between them. It was a small thing, but it was real.